Come on, Livingston. We gotta go on and on and on. Together we can make it. We gotta go on and on and on. Come on, Livingston.
Knocks it through. Mullen bursting into the box. Josh Mullen.
Together we can make it.
Mullen's ball across, it's turned in! It's Pittman who's got it! Livingston leads!
Road is long.
Now can they get the ball back in? O'Brien.
Lead! And Livingston have the lead!
Man, can score.
If we march together.
The full-time whistle blows and David Hayes celebrates! And the Livingston fans join in exultation.
Come on, Livingston.
Livingston have the lead against Rangers, and they are certainly rising to a few occasions on their return to the top flight in Scotland.
Come on, Livingston. We gotta go.
Hello and welcome back to Talk Livi, the podcast dedicated to everything Livingston Football Club and Scottish football. My name's Euan and today I'm joined by Angus. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. Disappointing weekend, but overall, sun's out. It can't be too disappointed. We'll take small victories whenever we can. But yeah, how about yourself?
Yeah, obviously disappointed with the results. I'm feeling a tad under the weather. I seem to get like this when I know I've got annual leave coming up. My body just decides to have a breakdown the week that I finish up for work for the international break. So hopefully either heading to Austria or Wales next week. Austria sounds a bit more exotic than Cardiff, but so hopefully it's that one that we're heading to. But obviously it'll be a couple of weeks before next game, but we will preview that in this week's episode. But as always, you can find this episode as well as all our other episodes on your preferred podcast streaming site. Just search for Talk Livi, so follow us or subscribe to ensure that you don't miss another episode.
We'll start the episode off by discussing our trip to Tynecastle, as despite an improved second half performance, the Lions fell to a 2-0 defeat.
It was a top of the table clash for our women's side as they took on leaders Rossvale. We'll discuss all the talking points from that game as well.
And finally, Euan caught up with St Johnstone fan Ross Gardiner to discuss our trip to Perth after the international break.
In the first of three huge games before the split, the Lions made the short trip to Gorgie looking for their first win at Tynecastle since 2002. It wasn't to be as Livi fell to a 2-0 defeat. Angus, what was your take on the game? It was, for a Livi point of view, it was the best way to describe it, game of two halves?
I don't know. I just feel kind of overall it's very kind of disappointing, We knew coming into this match there was like a lot of kind of riding on it, with the top kind of 6 potential places being up for grabs. This is also the hardest game that we had into it, so I thought we would have had, we'd been a bit more, kind of prepared or even up for it. But I think that's what the most disappointing thing is that we didn't seem at it, especially that first half, which I think kind of set the tempo for the game and killed it off. Hearts, to be fair, great side. There's a reason why they are. Well, there's 2 reasons why they're so far ahead of everybody is because, they are actually pretty decent and, most of the other teams have been pretty tosh for the most part. But I just feel in that first half in particular, we didn't put our own kind of imprint on the game at all. It was just so unlike us, we're so lethargic, not really, but, we're so far away from the ball every time it kind of broke down. 50-50s, we weren't even really challenging for them. It was just kind of too easy for Hearts, to kind of play. The only way that we seemed to be threatening in that first half was, from set pieces and that. And even at that, there wasn't too many opportunities for that. So, yeah, I think, maybe a wee bit of perspective's needed. You're going away to, the third best team in the league. It's going to be a difficult game. But, I don't know, I just feel like we should have, imposed ourselves a bit more than we actually did. We get off to a terrible start with, conceding a goal from, a cross. We fail to deal with it. Beningame gets, I think it's like his second goal in 2 games that he's scored exactly like that. So yeah, straight away, I think if you lose an early goal at one of these away grounds, you're your game plan goes out the window to an extent. You know, whatever was kind of planned to do, if that was to sit back and then in the second half go for it a wee bit more, kind of is disrupted a bit because, you know, you have to chase the game a wee bit more. And if not, you allow Hearts to control and dictate the game, which they absolutely did. They probably should have made it, you know, more before halftime as well. You know, I think coming into it as a great chance that Striek pulls off a really good save for. I don't know if it was Sims. They looked to be threatening much more than we did. And saying that though, it was only 1-0 before half time, and I think we have a glorious chance with a free kick that, you know, if Fitzwater heads back across goal to Don coming Devlin or somebody else who's running at the back post, you know, you go in 1-1 very much undeservedly, but you know, you've given yourself a massive chance. You know what the Tynecastle support can be like. You can get on the back of their own team, but it wasn't to be. And then, yeah, Hearts scored, you know, an absolutely incredible goal to make it 2-0. That volley, there's not really much you can do about it. It's just one of the ones that he's just struck perfectly, and it just kind of glides into the top of the, well, I wouldn't really say it's proper top corner, but it just kind of goes into that kind of grey area where you can't reach it. Yeah, the performance in the second half was a bit improved, but I guess you'd say, is that more to do with, you know, us really stepping up, or, you know, Hearts just kind of comfortably seeing it out, and, you know, there wasn't really too much for them to go forward for. They got their 2 goals. They would kind of let us go on and then would try and look to counter-attack themselves. I'm not sure, but don't think anybody was really expecting massive things from this game. But yeah, I think maybe a wee bit more would have, you know, been a wee bit more pleasing. But we're still in the top 6, you know, with results in the top 6 going our way. So can't have too many complaints, I guess. What do you think?
Yeah, as you touched on, the early goal kind of really sets you back, doesn't it? Any game plan that you might have had. I was speaking to you yesterday at the women's game, and I kind of said that I don't know if the game plan was to sit in, be really compact, difficult to break down, and then second half have a bit more of a go, or if we were intending to have a little bit of a go first half. The way I would look at it is, if you look at the first goal, when you've got 3 bodies all pressing Barry Mackay, I think we were maybe going to have a bit of a go first half and try and get in their faces a little bit. But then we've conceded that goal and we've maybe gone, might need to sit off them a little bit. But yeah, the first goal, as I say, 3 players sucked into Mackay. It's a ball round the corner for boys, put it across, and then it's pinball in the box. I don't think Odin and Penners cover themselves in a great deal of glory at the back post and in the 6-yard box, and the ball's brought to Beningame. It's an easy tap in for him, and you're kind of on the back foot from the get go. Having said that, I think Hearts dominated the ball without creating maybe a great deal of opportunities for a lot of the ball that they had. You mentioned the chance that Sims had that Max has pulled off a good save from. Halkett's had one from a dead ball that's arrived at him at the back post that's got deflected into the side netting as well. But I just found we were really passive. We were really, really passive. We sat off Hearts. When the ball came into the likes of Halkett and Kingsley at centre half, they were finding it really easy to play a 15, 20-yard ball into the 3 in behind them, McInnes, Mackay and Boyce. The ball was getting into Hearts' danger men far too easily for my liking. And that comes from, you know, pressing from the front, and we didn't do enough of that. Whilst you look at Hearts, anytime our back four got in possession, we kept getting further and further and further back, and we kept getting closer and closer to Max. It just shows you how when you press as a team, you can force teams back. And I think, you know, as you say, we had that incredible chance right on half-time. If Fitzy manages to put that back across, it's a tap-in for either Io or Nicky coming in at the back post. Undeserved getting in at half-time, but it makes your team talk very different second half. And, you know, I think we came out second half. Clearly, I think the players had a bit of a rollicking in the dressing room at half-time from Davey, and rightly so, I think. And I think we did try to get in Hearts' faces a little bit more. We had a couple of opportunities, you know, that anyone who wasn't at the game, the highlights don't really show it, but Nubley's had one where he's managed to get in. He's chopped the boy in the box. He's got a 1v1 and he gets the ball stuck under his feet. Unbelievable opportunity. But we've had other chances as well. You know, Forrest has had an effort which has been saved by Craig Gordon, but the second goal just kills the game at that point. You know, Hearts are very good at defending leads. They've got a very solid, you know, back four, back three, whatever setup they go with. And It's a phenomenal finish by Barry Mackay. You can't take anything away from that. But I think Sims bullied us a little bit in the build-up. And I also think Odin needs to be a bit tighter to Barry Mackay as well. He's got too much time to make up his mind what he's going to do with that finish. But I think we kept plugging away. We had another couple of opportunities. Ios had one which he's blazed over the bar from a cutback from, I think it was Soto or Caleb, I can't quite remember, who cut the ball back. And then Shinnie's had a chance as well, which Craig Gordon saved. But as you say, how much of that second half performance was down to Hearts maybe playing a little bit in neutral? You knew that the game was over and done with. But yeah, it was always going to be a very tough game against Hearts. As you say, they are the third best team in the league for a reason. They are miles ahead of everyone else in the league in terms of third place. They're in the Scottish Cup semi-finals. They're a very good side, I think, out with the Old Firm, I would say, by far and away the best side that we have played. And the league table suggests that as well. So it was always going to be a tough task. And we've not won there since 2002. It's not a happy hunting ground for us. I think we've only scored one in something like our last 8 or 9 visits as well, which was Marvin Bartley's overhead kick, the most unlikely of goal scorers and type of goal as well. So yeah, it was always going to be a very difficult afternoon. But I think the frustrating thing with it is the first half performance and kind of how passive we were and how much we sat off Hearts. And I think we made a good side look even better in the first 45 minutes in particular. There was obviously a bit of news during the week, Angus. Bruce Anderson is injured. We don't know how long for. Do you think Bruce might have made any sort of difference if he was available on Saturday?
Probably so, yeah. Just because you have, that kind of natural player playing there. I mean, I kind of always go on about it, regarding wingers. I'd always prefer like a natural player in that position to be starting. And yeah, the way that Bruce has kind of, improved on like all the aspects of his game, I think it certainly would have. I mean, for one, you would end it up with Alan Forrest and Newbley on their preferred like sides essentially. And then, a player who, knows all the runs to make and all that naturally, knows where to go. And then obviously the hold up play and stuff like that as well. Also, you can end up just like firing balls into the box, into the danger areas, because you know that Bruce is that kind of poacher who's, going to be making those kind of runs. So yeah, I definitely would say so. I mean, he's a top goal scorer and everything. So yeah, definitely would have made a difference. In all honesty, to go on to that, I would have liked to have seen Soto come in and play from the start. I mean, as I mentioned there, I would prefer somebody who's like a natural player in that position to be starting. And, we've only got like 7 games left before, realistically going to be going back to Norwich. If Anderson's injured as well, it's a perfect time to give somebody like that, some minutes under their belt to see if, if they can hack it at this level or to prepare them for the game that will be coming up against St Johnstone, So I did think that was a wee bit of a surprise. Not saying that like Bailey's a bad player in any chance or that. It's just, I feel like the personnel just play like an actual normal striker rather than, forcing a winger out there. But I think that's to be like expected under Martindale. I mean, Forrest has been chucked into the middle like a couple of times, like halfway during games and stuff like that, and it's done reasonably well. So I can see, the thinking towards it. I think the thing with Newbley as well is, they want them to kind of rotate. Definitely can't see it from that way, but yeah, I guess hindsight is the perfect thing way forward. But I'll be looking at Soto there and be like, I want to see more of him in these next 2 games if Anderson's not going to be fit.
Yeah, I'm not going to criticise Davey for his selection because in one of our group chats with the boys I've got to games with, we said that front 3 from the get-go. So we were all picking the same team as Davey, so we can't then go and have a go at him when it doesn't quite click. And as you say, Alan Forrest has played a fair few games this season where he has gone through the middle and he's caused teams a lot of problems because he is a bit unpredictable when he plays in that position. So I'm not going to criticise anything like that. I agree with you. I think it's an opportunity to see what Soto can do. Him and Caleb Chukwuemeka had a decent run out at Tynecastle. I thought Soto looked bright. Again, it's difficult to tell when the game's 2-0. It's probably out of reach and things like that. But I thought Caleb did really well when he came on. He's obviously a player that's been criticised by some sections of the support earlier in the season. Arguments that you can say rightly so in some aspects in some particular games. But I genuinely think Caleb had a really good cameo when he came on. He looked really lively. But the thing I would say, he was doing the hard work off the ball. as well, which I think is what fans were maybe, getting frustrated at. And I think having had a little bit more time to get used to his surroundings and what's expected at Livi, I think Caleb had a really decent cameo, and I think it'd be nice to see him maybe get a few more minutes further as the season goes on. But yeah, I was quite happy with his contribution when he came on as well. So there were positives in terms of some of the changes that were made, valuable minutes given to players, as I say, the likes of Soto and Caleb. So we'll wait and see. But it's been a frustrating month with kind of a very stop-start month, isn't it? But 2 weeks just about between every game. So you're struggling to get that bit of rhythm going when you're going into the tail end of the season, which I'm sure is probably frustrating Davey a little bit as well. But it was always going to be a tough afternoon at Tynecastle. So, albeit we all predicted draws, but how much was that just trying to be positive and hoping for the best? But nah, it was a tough afternoon all round. But hopefully we can brush it off and get a good result up in Perth in a couple of weeks' time.
After a couple of comprehensive away wins, the Lionesses faced a tough game against league leaders Rossvale as they looked to close the gap at the top of the table. Despite taking the lead late on, we had to settle for a point as the game finished 2-2. What did you make of the game, Euan?
Frustrating, probably in the end. Frustrating, especially as we took the lead, I think, was it 80 minutes to go 2-1 up, having been 1-0 down fairly early on in the second half. I think it's frustrating because I've seen a lot of the teams at the top end of the table at home in particular. I've not made quite as many away games this season watching the girls, but I think they're a better side than some of these teams when I've seen them in the flesh, and it's frustrating that they've maybe not picked up the 3 points that a lot of their play and chances that they've created deserves. So it was quite a frustrating one, I have to say. But I think first half, the girls were very good in possession. Lots of little triangles being worked in the middle of the park, which was nice to see. Not a lot of clear-cut chances for the girls first half. I think Mason had a long-range effort, which has landed on the roof of the net. I think Ashley Fish has had a header, which has gone wide. But Rossvale had a couple of chances. Their wee winger, the number 14, was excellent. I think the best player I've seen up against the girls this season. Really tricky winger, really quick, technically very good. And she was causing a lot of problems down the left-hand side. But Rossvale had a couple of chances, as I say, one over the bar. Charlotte Ferguson's made a decent save from a 1v1 as well. A couple of chances just before half-time that Ashley Fish has had, a lob which has gone over, and another headed chance as well. I know Ashley loves a wee headed goal, so she might be disappointed that she's not scored there. But second half, the girls went 1-0 down, and as I said, it was the wee number 14 for Rossvale that got the goal. Just quite slack defending, to put it bluntly. I think everyone kind of switches off when the ball breaks out wide, and she's managed to come back inside and stick it in at the near post. But fair play to the girls, they responded really well, and I don't think in Scottish football this season you will see a more Route 1 goal than Ashley Fish's equaliser. It is a strategical hoof up the park from Tasha Frew, was it? And to be fair to Ashley, she's taken it down really well, opened up the goal, and she's rolled it into the far corner on her left side. And we've got the equaliser, which I think we probably deserved over the course of the game at that point. And Gemma Mason, free kick specialist, all of a sudden she's cracked the crossbar, come off the underside of the bar, bounced down, agonisingly close to going in with a free kick. Vicky Woods then had a 1v1, which the keepers made a good save from, but Vicky almost then got an identical chance later on, and she's managed to tuck it away that time. Rebecca Jackinelli's played a great through ball, and Vicky's absolutely rifled the ball into the top corner. And you think once we've got the lead there, hopefully we can see it out and put a lot of pressure on Rossvale in the league, because that would have cut the gap to 1 point with a game in hand as well. Big opportunity for the girls, but Rossvale managed to get the equaliser at the tail end. Free kick kind of floated into the back post, and it's a free header at the back post, which has got them a late equaliser in the end. But I have to say it was an entertaining game. It was glorious sunshine as well, beautiful afternoon for it. But I feel the girls will probably be frustrated that they've not they've not managed to get over the line and get a really important 3 points, because they've taken a couple of big scores in recent games, going away to Ayr, winning 8-1, given that they've lost to Ayr this season and had a very close encounter with them that we watched, Angus, at Livi, and then going away to Hutchie Vale, winning 5-1 as well. So the girls would have been fancying their chances, but I can see why Rossvale are doing well, because they were very well organised and they've got a few very technically good players as well. So I can see why they're doing quite well in the league. But I would say, I reckon the girls will maybe be a little bit frustrated they've not got over the line in that one.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you. I think that's kind of been the case for most of the games this season against the teams who are near the top. I think they drew with Rossvale away from home 2 each as well earlier in the season. I think they got beat 3-2 off of Gardiner, and it's kind of games where, they've had, the better share of the ball and not necessarily made it count in terms of like chances or that. And then also kind of conceding some late goals that, snatch like victory away from them or whatever. So I think they definitely will be, quite disappointed with that, because I would say that, over the course of the game that they did create the more better chances. And yeah, the last goal in particular will be very hard to take, because, they've put so much into the match to, to get that lead. And then a free kick comes in and, the captain's left at the back post with, all the time in the world, all the space in the world, and heads in. So it'll be very, very frustrating for the team, because, how much was put into it, and, it would have been a massive 3 points to get them, closer to Rossvale. But still have a game in hand over Rossvale. Their next game will now be against Gardiner, which is, probably an even bigger match, because I think Gardiner have got a couple of games in hand as well. If Gardiner were to win, both their games in hand, I think they would go top. So the battle for the top is very much still on, and hopefully, we'll be able to get the right result and, put things right next week. But yeah, the performance, I think is very positive for the most part. The way that they were knocking the ball about. And we were missing Rachel Walkinshaw and Shannon Milligan in the middle of the park as well, kind of two of the more kind of technical players. The way they were kind of passing the ball about, in the wee triangles, and that was some of the best stuff I think we'd seen all season, spreading the play out. I guess it's just kind of missing that wee bit more, kind of the creative spark that like Shannon or Rachel kind of adds to the team, and, connecting, the midfield to the attack. Because I think Jen had a very quiet afternoon, but I don't think that was to any fault of her own. It's just that, there necessarily wasn't much service going to her. But yeah, I think there's a lot to, kind of take in. I think the coaching team will certainly have a look at the game and realise, a couple of tweaks, a wee bit sharper or whatever, and, they'll be turning those kind of draws into victories. So yeah, not too doom and gloom. Hopefully they'll use this match as, the perfect foil to, go in that game against Gardiner and, make sure that they get the 3 points. They seem to be pulling out all the spectacular performances away from home. So hopefully this is another one for that as well.
Yeah, the other thing I was going to touch on, we were talking about it watching the game, you could tell there was a bit riding on it because there was a few meaty challenges going in across the park. There was a few spectacular challenges for Tasha Frew to stop Rossvale going through 1v1, and the keeper, I think Jess Murphy, pulled out a couple of crunchers as well. So it was a thoroughly entertaining game from just about every angle, the way you could look at it. But I really encourage folk to get along and watch the girls if you're free on a Sunday afternoon, because they put a lot of effort into the games and they deserve a bit of support going to watch them, especially the fact that they're well in the mix for promotion as well. So that might help them push them over the line in these games at home in particular. So I really encourage anyone to get down and watch the games. There's plenty of goals, plenty of action almost every week. So thoroughly encourage you to get down and watch the girls. I'm delighted to welcome Ross Gardiner back onto the podcast. How you doing, mate?
Good. Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
No, it's a pleasure to have you on. You're one of the only Saints fans I know. So, I need to come to you anytime we do these bits on the podcast. I'm probably the only Livi fan, to be fair as well.
Oh, there's no probably about it.
Now, since the last time we had you on, just before the cup final, which we won't discuss in any detail whatsoever on this today, but St Johnstone have won a cup double, drew with Galatasaray in Europe, and now find yourselves in a bit of a relegation scrap. It's certainly not been dull, has it?
No, it's not. I'm sure I've sort of said in the past that St Johnstone and Livingston have sort of taken separate routes to where they are and where they've gotten. And certainly, I think that Livingston has perhaps been more the roller coaster over years gone by. But I think the last maybe 18 months in St Johnstone's history, certainly roller coaster is the word.
Yeah, and I mean, I suppose I should give you the opportunity to mention the cup finals. You were one of the very few, probably like the 1% of Saints fans that got to see both of them in the flesh, Ross. How amazing was it to get to see essentially the greatest achievement that the club will ever have in the flesh?
Yeah, I mean, no, really, nothing compares. And I think it's fair to say that certainly my generation of St Johnstone fans have been spoiled in terms of the success that the club has managed to sustain as well as just achieve. But yeah, there's still certainly a degree of sheepishness. I certainly feel that some fans, my dad in particular, have probably earned the right for that more. They certainly are time served in watching St Johnstone down in the very bottom tier, and they are the ones who missed out. So there's an element of sheepishness. But I think, to be totally honest, it's, as you say, it's something that I certainly don't see St Johnstone repeating, and probably don't see any club in Scotland other than Celtic and Rangers repeating it anytime soon. It is an achievement that is absolutely second to none.
But after the highs of last season, what was the ambition at the start of this campaign for St Johnstone? Because I'm sure fans' expectations might have gone through the roof a little bit. 2 cup wins, qualifying for Europe in the process as well. What was the expectation for the realistic St Johnstone fan?
Yeah, I mean, do you know, it's as I think even Saints fans will tell you it's not underwhelming to immediately say that our priority for the next season is just stay in the division. Obviously, you do look at the way that this season started with losing arguably your 2 best players on transfer deadline day, and I think as much as obviously you want to continue the success, and there was a huge emphasis certainly in the European matches against Galatasaray and Lask, where Saints gave a fantastic account of themselves, to be able to continue that. But at the same time, that it does leave you a little bit stretched. But Malky Mackay was speaking in the press earlier, I think it was last week, saying for Ross County that their aim, no matter what, despite the fact that they're sort of on the verge of possibly getting Europe, that their aim is just staying in the division. And I'm sure that Saints fans would echo that. It's something that I'd imagine even Livy fans would have a similar perspective.
Some of us do. Folk like myself, Ross. I
don't want to. Obviously, you look at the success and you do want to build on that. Obviously, you have to ask yourself, how do you build on that? But the bottom line is, it's making sure that you can sustain your position in the league.
Yeah, you mentioned the loss of Ali McCann and Jason Kerr. Just how big an impact has that had, losing those guys on deadline day? Because they were obviously stalwarts in the success of last season.
Yeah, I mean, I think, to be honest, if you look at the impact that they've had down at their clubs, their new clubs in England, is a great way of putting it. Ali, certainly, before the change in management, was playing week in, week out, almost every minute, and fast became a fan's favourite. Jason Kerr, I noticed, scored his first goal for Wigan just at the weekend there. They've slotted in fairly seamlessly at a high level.
Jason Kerr also saved a cat as well.
He did. It was in the same week as a certain other football player was under a little bit of pressure about animal welfare, and I was delighted to see that Jason's do football proud.
But after an okay start to the season, the exploits in Europe as well, it seemed to very much go downhill after the defeat to ourselves, actually, at McDermott. When did it become apparent that you were going to be in a bit of a scrap this season?
It's hard to say when exactly you could pinpoint that to. It certainly does feel a little bit like we cashed in a lot of our luck last season, and it's we're maybe paying the arrears for that now. Throughout we had a 10 straight losses, which were it was pretty tough. but there was certainly a lot of matches in amongst there where you're looking at one decision or one a late goal or one thing that sort of goes against you, and that the performance is there, and you can see that things are maybe sort of one step away from clicking, and it doesn't go your way. You don't get that rub of the green, and then as you say, it's hard to pinpoint one moment as to when that was. Certainly that first match against Livingston was one that didn't quite go to plan, but yeah, thankfully things look to be on a bit of a turn now. The performances are as strong as I've seen all season. Since the last time we played you do seem to be the roundabout for us this season. So yeah, I've absolutely no idea what to expect next time we face you.
And Effie Ambrose done us an absolute solid that day. Obviously really enjoyed his time at Livy. Effie's now away at Dunfermline, but I take it he's not gone down particularly well since he moved up to Perth.
Yeah, do you know what? He had a pretty great start. To be totally honest with you, there was one particular match against Dundee where he was one of the standouts, and there's a clip certainly going around on social media of him using, I think, 2 touches to leave 3 Dundee attackers for dead. But yeah, do you know what? It's one of these ones. It's hard to say exactly what goes on behind the scenes, but he left just after the January window to join Dunfermline. Things certainly seem to be going well for him there. You're getting a bit more game time. He was a popular player for that short spell where he was playing with us. Had a few good appearances up at Aberdeen and against Rangers as well. But unfortunately that day perhaps contributed to his old team than we would have hoped for anyway.
He is the epitome of the meme, isn't he? The what am I like meme, Effie Ambrose. He can be borderline Ballon d'Or winner or Sunday League pub team sort of disaster waiting to happen. He's been out in the piss the night before type thing. Like there's no in between with him. It's.
I was hoping to see more of him in a Saints jersey, to be honest. He's
box office. He's utter box office.
And do you know what it is? It's an exciting signing as well. You look at the experience of winning the African Cup of Nations, playing the Confederations Cup, playing at the World Cup, 50 caps for Nigeria, Champions League, and he's still only 32 years old, 33 years old. He's this huge wealth of experience, and yeah, I'm sure that the Dunfermline fans will be. Are certainly would have been as excited about the signing as Saints fans were. Of course, now we are now looking at our new January signing at the back of Dan Cleary, who has just been an absolute revelation for St Johnstone, and I think is a huge factor in the turnaround of Saints' season. We spoke at the start about the impact of losing Jason Kerr, your captain, and somebody who is that sort of rock at the right of your back three, but also he was a big figure going forward as well. What we saw was his almost trademark underlapping runs, just pulling defenders away and creating space. And since we've signed Dan Cleary, he's taken on that role of certainly first and foremost making sure that things are steady at the back. But certainly the last time we played Livingston, he popped up a fantastic assist for Callum Hendry, a really, really wonderful cross. And I think that was perhaps the moment where Saints fans really fell in love and thought, right, let's see what else you've got.
Yeah, you kind of mentioned some of the arrivals in January. It was a busy transfer window for you guys, and it seems the late win at our place has kind of kicked some life back into your season again. I think it's only 3 defeats in your last 10. You mentioned Cleary's made the difference. Is there any other of the January arrivals? I think there's one in particular that springs to my mind who was already there but came back, who's made a big difference as well.
I was speaking to my co-commentator Stephen Watt about this during the Motherwell game at the weekend, and we were asking if a player returning from loan can count as your season. Callum Hendry has absolutely come back and just absolutely staggering form. Kilmarnock fans not too chuffed to lose him. He'd slotted in really well there, and yeah, he's come back just completely reinvigorated. 6 goals in 9 games, all but the last have come within the opening 25 minutes. He's a player who certainly the first season where he really broke through in the St Johnstone team. He finished as top scorer. It was the season that was curtailed because of the pandemic. He'd sort of developed this real knack of coming off the bench and scoring, after, just a couple of minutes on the park and getting these last minute winners or getting these last minute equal. Whereas this season, he's almost gone the other way. He's starting matches and he's not taking long to get the score sheet at all, which is it's creating a foundation that Saints are then needing to go forward. We certainly over the winter we really did struggle for goals. We weren't shipping a huge amount of goals. There was you were perhaps losing 1-0 or 2-0, but it's the fact that we weren't finding the net that was ultimately our downfall. We've now hopefully put that to bed with finding Callum Hendry in such fantastic form, and it's a great range of goals as well. We've seen obviously fantastic headers against Livingston and there against Motherwell. He's capable from the sort of the traditional poachers finishes that we've grown to know he's capable of, and the absolute scorcher that he scored against Motherwell to win it at the death at the weekend is, for me, one of the best goals that I've seen at McDermott Park, certainly in 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, you mentioned that there. Your defensive record, I think you've conceded 37 in the league, which is the 6th best defence in the league. So obviously it's not, at the back, it's obviously not that big a problem, but you've only scored 20 goals, which I think is 5 behind Dundee, who are the second lowest scorers after that. So it's obviously been at that end, but I could never understand why Callum Hendry, kind of almost faded away at St Johnstone, because it, as you say, that season it was cut short. I think he scored the winner in the game before everything kind of got put to a halt against ourselves. I never understood how he kind of almost fell out of favour at St Johnstone, because he had such a good season that year.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think the 6 months, the first 6 months after the sort of football returned, he'd scored 1 goal for us, and it was you really can't put a value on it. It was a winner away at Fir Park in the League Cup, round the 16. So it's a completely pivotal member of this double winning squad. But at that point we had Stevie May and Chris Kane in really fine form, and it got to January and Guy Mellon had managed to break into the team. He was put out on loan to Aberdeen. Of course, Aberdeen last season really struggled for goals. Hendry finished from the point where he joined Aberdeen to the end of the season, nobody scored more goals than Callum Hendry did. Came back to a Saints team, obviously the most confident that a Saints team has probably ever been in my time following the club. Chris Kane scoring European goals, Stevie May in good form as well, Glenn Middleton at his very best, and I think it was just a decision to see about putting him out on loan somewhere. Kilmarnock was a good fit, and ultimately Kilmarnock was a great fit. He scored, I think, 5 goals in 15 matches, which is a great return. As I say, the fans down in Ayrshire weren't too chuffed to be losing him, and he's come back absolutely just bursting with confidence, and you have to think he's only going to go from strength to strength.
Moving on to the game itself, it's a big game for both sides for different reasons. We're chasing top 6 potential European football yourselves, trying to ensure that you don't finish in 12th spot. For me, I think St Johnstone have a lot more than Dundee do about them. But anyway, what can we expect from Saints in that game, and which players? Obviously, we've mentioned Callum Hendry, but what other players do we need to keep an eye out for?
I have to agree with you. It's a massive game. I think one of the things that's almost conspired against St Johnstone this season is that normally you've obviously got Celtic and Rangers ahead of everybody else, and then you've got maybe 2 or 3 teams fighting for 3rd and obviously now 4th place, and then you've got a couple of teams that are sort of, there's a bit of a tussle for top 6, and then a couple of teams that are perhaps doing their best to stave off this 11th place or 12th place. And this season we just don't have that at all. There's 4 points between 4th and 10th. It's absolutely just absurd, and it's ultimately it's not going in St Johnstone's favour, because for the last few weeks the team who is when we've been picking up a result, the team who's 1 place ahead of us have been winning as well, and you're not really gaining on anybody in particular, so to speak. Obviously for Livingston, that becomes a double-edged sword, in that you've got to look both over your shoulder at teams that are coming up behind you, but also knowing fine well that, you know, fourth place is there for the taking, and all it takes is a stringing together that sort of good run of results. Certainly for Saints, I know that we're in that position as well, where you've got one eye behind you, looking at, you know, trying to make sure that you're staying clear of Dundee, but also, you know, there's still 6 games to go. You're wanting to, or 7 games to go, I should say. You are wanting to close that gap and do your best to finish away from the playoffs. Obviously, the priority is making sure that you don't finish 12th. So yeah, it's going to be just like the last time we met. It's going to be I'm sure a pretty tense match, and with everything to play for. For me, players to watch. One of my favourite signings that we've made over the January window was Melker Hallberg, who we signed on an 18-month deal from Hibs. I think we speak about the lack of goals. It's maybe been down to, you know, not necessarily a lack of goals, but as much a lack of, you know, creating chances. And that's something that Hallberg has really, really helped with in the middle of the park. He's on 3 assists already, managed to get 2 against Hearts and 1 against Motherwell at the weekend there. He's a player who's really confident on the ball. He's happy to carry it forward. His vision's fantastic, and he's got the end product as well. He is a Swedish international with an international goal to his name. He's been a great addition to the Saints team. He's slotted in seamlessly, and the match where we did miss him after he picked up a red card, you really noticed it. So for me, he's one who certainly, I'm sure Livingston midfield will be looking to hone in on and to try and quell things at his juncture. There's been quite a lot of positivity. Another one who came in at January who I've been really impressed with is Tony Gallagher, signed from Liverpool.
Yeah.
One-time Falkirk left back who maybe had to wait a couple of weeks to be able to get into the team. Callum Booth was obviously one of the first names on the team sheet, but Gallagher has absolutely, for me, made that position his own. He's completely composed and steady where he's at the back. He doesn't dive in when he doesn't need to. I think just an all-round good signing. Quite frankly, he's looking positive going forward as well. You know that if he can forge out the space for a cross, he's not going to think twice. And I think he's somebody who fills the home fans here at McDermott Park with some real excitement.
So if I had to push you for a prediction, Ross, what are you going for then?
I'm going to go for an absolute mirror of the last time that Livingston and St Johnstone met, and I will say that it'll be 2-1 St Johnstone, and I'm going to be incredibly boring and say it'll be the exactly same scorers, but I'll say it'll be the other way around this time.
No, you might struggle with Bruce Anderson scoring now, because Bruce could be out for that game after his injury. So yeah, I don't think Bruce will be available, unfortunately for ourselves.
He's been a huge signing, hasn't he?
He's been fantastic. I think with Bruce, when he came in, I've said this on the podcast before, but when he came in, you kind of knew if he got chances, he'd score goals. He has and I think he's the first striker we've had in a number of years. It's a natural, but he's got a bit of a poacher's instinct about him. And I think even Bruce has said this himself. I think the thing that he had to improve on was his play outside of the box in terms of linking the game up, because at Livi, we don't maybe have the luxury of being able to just have a poacher up top. We need a striker that can kind of link the game and bring others into it and stuff like that. So I think that's why Bruce was coming in and out of the team first half of the season. But since the January break, he's been unreal. And had it not been for his injury, I think he might have been in with a sniff of the Scotland squad, especially with it being 2 friendlies. But I think if he can come back, get himself fit, hopefully sooner rather than later, and finish the season the way he has, I think again he might be in with a shout at like the Nations League squads in June. So no, he's been fantastic, and it's proved to be an unbelievable bit of business. You know, getting Anderson for nothing and Jet going the other way with money coming into our bank account as well for it. It's proved to be a very popular deal by Livi fans. But Ross, thank you Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It goes without saying, obviously, I'm sure I'll see you on Scotland duty over the next couple of weeks. Have you organised Austria yet? Are you gambling until?
But I've got a feeling that might be possibly happening later on this evening. I'm not going to confirm or deny because I frankly don't know. It'll be very soon is the answer.
Well, I'm sure I'll see you, whatever country we end up in, I'm sure I'll see you for a pint. But thanks very much for coming on the podcast again.
Thanks for having me.
That's it for this week's episode of Talk Livi. Thanks again to every single one of you for tuning in week and week out. If you can, we'd love to hear your feedback. Either leave us a review on iTunes or simply message us on Facebook, Twitter or Instagram.
As Angus said, we're on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Search Talk Livi to find us and you'll find all the links to our weekly episodes on there as well. You can also find all our episodes, including this one, on all good podcast streaming sites, including iTunes and Spotify. And we're also on YouTube, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If none of those options suit you, all you have to do is head to our website, talklivipodcast.libsyn.com, where you'll find every single episode we've done over the last few years.
That's it for this week. Thanks to all our listeners for tuning in. Let's hope for another great week following Lothian's finest football team, and good luck to the Scottish national team as they take on... Who are they playing, Euan?
They're definitely playing Poland, and they're either playing Austria or Wales. I still don't know where I'm going in a week's time, so that's really good for travelling in these current climate. But also a big congratulations to Craig Halkett. Forgot to mention it when we were covering the Hearts game. Former Livy captain has been called up to the Scotland squad after a few call-offs. So hopefully I can see Halks get his first cap, which would be, I'll be like a proud dad watching Halks pulling the Scotland blue. So yeah, best of luck.
Maybe as well.
Exactly. So best of luck to Halks, best of luck to Liam Kelly, who was called up in the original squad as well for the upcoming games, wherever they might be.
Livingston, oh Livingston, the Almonville Lions roar. Livingston, oh Livingston, we realize our vision. Livingston, oh Livingston, into the